When 63-year-old Dr. Catherine Monroe, a distinguished psychology professor with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, walks into a boutique wine bar on a cold December evening, she never expects to lock eyes with Natalie Brooks, a vibrant 48-year-old interior designer whose warmth melts the winter chill instantly. What begins as an accidental meeting over spilled Merlot becomes an intoxicating love affair that defies every rule about age, timing, and second chances. Catherine has spent 6 decades living by logic and restraint, while Natalie has spent nearly 5 decades searching for a love that feels like coming home. But when a 15-year age gap collides with family expectations, past heartbreaks, and their own fears about vulnerability, these two women must decide if the connection burning between them is worth risking everything they've carefully built in their separate lives. Catherine Monroe adjusted her reading glasses and sipped her Merlot, savoring the quiet solitude of vintage and vine, her favorite wine bar near Boston University where she'd taught psychology for 37 years. At 63, she'd earned her peaceful Friday evenings alone with a good book and excellent wine. Her colleagues thought her aloof, her grown children worried she was lonely. But Catherine had made peace with solitude after her divorce 5 years ago, finally freed her from a loveless marriage. The commotion at the entrance made her glance up from her book, a woman struggling with an oversized portfolio, laptop bag, and coat, trying to navigate through the narrow doorway. Catherine watched with mild amusement as the woman's purse caught on the door handle, sending her stumbling forward directly into the table next to Catherine's. The wine glass tumbled, deep red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth and dripping onto Catherine's cream cashmere sweater. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." The woman's voice was warm despite her obvious mortification. "I'm such a disaster when I'm carrying too much. Please let me help." Catherine looked up to politely refuse and found herself staring into the warmest brown eyes she'd ever seen. The woman was striking, dark hair with natural honey highlights, dressed in a bohemian style that somehow managed to look both artistic and sophisticated. Mid-40s, Catherine estimated, though she radiated an energy that made age irrelevant. "It's just wine," Catherine heard herself saying, surprised by the breathlessness in her voice. "And this sweater needed cleaning anyway." "You're very kind, but I insist on paying for the dry cleaning. I'm Natalie, by the way. Natalie Brooks." She extended her hand, and Catherine noticed the paint stains on her fingers, the collection of silver rings, the genuine warmth in her smile. Catherine Monroe. Their handshake lasted a moment longer than necessary, and Catherine felt an unexpected flutter in her chest, something she hadn't experienced in decades. "Let me at least buy you another glass of wine," Natalie offered. "What were you drinking?" "The Chateau Margaux, but really it's not necessary." "I insist. Consider it my penance for being a walking disaster." Natalie signaled the bartender, then turned back to Catherine with a smile that made Catherine's practiced composure waver. "Were you reading something fascinating? Or can I interrupt long enough to apologize properly?" Catherine glanced at her book, Late Life Identity Development, and felt suddenly self-conscious about the clinical choice. "Just work reading. I teach psychology at BU." "A professor! How wonderful! I always envied people with the discipline for academia." Natalie settled into the chair across from Catherine without asking permission, and somehow it didn't feel presumptuous. "I'm an interior designer, much less intellectual, much more about making spaces feel like home." "That requires its own kind of intelligence," Catherine found herself saying. "Understanding how people want to feel in their environments, translating abstract emotions into concrete design choices." Natalie's face lit up. "Exactly! Most people think it's just about making things pretty, but it's really about understanding psychology, what colors soothe, what layouts create connection, how light affects mood." They fell into easy conversation, the spilled wine forgotten. Catherine learned that Natalie had recently relocated from San Francisco after finalizing a difficult divorce, that she was starting her own design firm in Boston, that she had 2 grown sons in their 20s. Natalie had an infectious enthusiasm that made Catherine feel more alive than she had in years. "Can I ask you something personal?" Natalie said after they'd been talking for over an hour. "And please feel free to tell me it's none of my business." "Go ahead. Are you here alone by choice, or are you waiting for someone who's very, very late?" Catherine smiled at the gentle way Natalie asked. "By choice. I come here most Friday evenings to decompress from the week." "Alone? I prefer it that way. Or I thought I did." Catherine was surprised by her own honesty. Natalie's eyes held hers. "And now?" "Now I'm wondering why I've been so committed to solitude when conversation can be this enjoyable." "Just enjoyable?" Natalie's voice had dropped slightly, becoming more intimate. Catherine felt heat rise in her cheeks, an unfamiliar sensation at her age. More than enjoyable. Intriguing. Unexpected. "I feel it too," Natalie said softly. "This connection. I wasn't looking for it, wasn't expecting it, but here it is." Catherine's rational mind warned her to be cautious. They'd just met. Natalie was at least 15 years younger. Catherine had sworn off romantic complications after her divorce. But something deeper, long dormant, stirred in response to Natalie's warmth. "I should probably confess something," Catherine said, her he. Catherine changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark slacks and a sapphire silk blouse that brought out her blue eyes. She felt ridiculous being this nervous about a dinner date at her age, but something about Natalie made her want to present her best self. The restaurant Natalie had chosen was intimate, soft lighting, quiet corners, the kind of place designed for meaningful conversation rather than performance. Natalie was already seated when Catherine arrived, and the sight of her took Catherine's breath away. She wore a flowing emerald dress that complemented her coloring perfectly, her hair loose around her shoulders, simple gold jewelry catching the candlelight. "You look stunning," Natalie said, standing to greet Catherine with a kiss on the cheek that lingered just slightly longer than casual. "As do you," Catherine replied, feeling suddenly shy. They ordered wine and fell into conversation as naturally as they had the night before. Catherine found herself sharing things she rarely discussed. Her difficult childhood as the daughter of emotionally distant academics, her marriage to a man she'd respected but never truly loved, her relief when he'd finally admitted he wanted a divorce. "Did you know," Natalie asked gently, that you preferred women?" Catherine was quiet for a long moment. "I suspected. There were signs throughout my life that I ignored or rationalized away, but I was raised in an era where such things weren't discussed, weren't acceptable. It was easier to follow the expected path than to examine too closely what I actually wanted." "Do you regret it?" "I regret the dishonesty, to myself and to my ex-husband. But I don't regret my children. I have 2 wonderful daughters, who are the lights of my life. I just wish I'd had the courage to live authentically sooner." Natalie reached across the table, taking Catherine's hand. "You're living authentically now. That takes courage, too." "What about you?" Catherine asked. "When did you know?" Natalie smiled. "College. I had a relationship with my roommate that I convinced myself was just an intense friendship. Then I met my husband, got pregnant, and spent the next 2 decades telling myself I'd made the right choice. But there was always this voice in the back of my mind asking, what if? What changed? My youngest son went to college 3 years ago. Suddenly, I had this empty house and all this time to think. I looked at my husband and realized we'd been roommates for years, not partners. We divorced amicably. He actually thanked me for being honest, said he'd suspected I wasn't fully present in the marriage. That must have been difficult. It was liberating, Natalie said. Terrifying, but liberating. For the first time in my adult life, I got to ask myself what I actually wanted. And what do you want? Natalie's eyes held Catherine's. Authenticity, connection, someone who sees me completely and doesn't ask me to diminish myself. Passion, laughter, growing old with someone I actually choose, not someone I ended up with by default. Catherine felt her heart race. That's a beautiful list. What about you, Catherine? What do you want? No one had asked her that question in years. Catherine considered carefully before answering. I want to feel alive again. I want to stop going through the motions of a carefully constructed life and actually experience joy. I want... She hesitated, then decided to be brave. I want to explore this thing between us and see where it leads. Natalie's smile was brilliant. I was hoping you'd say that. They talked through dinner and dessert, the conversation flowing from serious topics to playful banter. Catherine found herself laughing more than she had in years, feeling lighter, younger, more herself. Can I ask you something? Natalie said as they lingered over coffee. And please be honest. Of course. Does the age difference bother you? I'm 15 years younger. You're also a grown woman who's lived a full life, raised children, built a career. Age is just a number, Natalie. But people will notice. They'll make assumptions, judgments. Catherine set down her coffee cup deliberately. I've spent 63 years caring what other people think. I'm tired of it. If I've learned anything, it's that life is too short to let other people's opinions dictate your happiness. Natalie's expression softened with admiration. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just a woman who's finally figuring out what she wants. After dinner, they walked through the winter streets, their breath visible in the cold air. When they reached Catherine's building, both hesitated. Would you like to come up for tea? Catherine asked, her heart pounding at her own boldness. I'd love that. Catherine's apartment was exactly what Natalie had imagined. Elegant but warm, filled with books and art, a space that reflected intelligence and taste. She watched Catherine move through the kitchen, preparing. 3 months into their relationship, Catherine found herself transformed in ways she hadn't thought possible. She laughed more, worried less, felt more present in her body than she had in decades. Her daughters noticed immediately. Mom, you're glowing, her eldest daughter Emma said during their weekly video call. What's going on? Catherine took a breath, deciding honesty was the only path forward. I'm seeing someone. Her name is Natalie, and she makes me very happy. Emma's eyes widened. Her? Mom, are you saying you're dating a woman? I am. How do you feel about that? Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. I'm surprised, but honestly, it makes a lot of things make sense. You and Dad never seemed fully connected. Does she treat you well? She treats me like I'm the most precious thing in her world. Then I'm happy for you, Mom. You deserve that. When do we get to meet her? The conversation with her younger daughter Sarah went similarly. Surprise followed by genuine happiness for Catherine's newfound joy. Catherine felt overwhelmed by their acceptance and love. Meeting each other's families proved more complicated. Natalie's sons, Jake, 26, and Connor, 23, struggled with their mother dating someone their father's age. She's 63, Mom, Jake said bluntly during a tense family dinner. What do you even have in common? Everything that matters, Natalie replied calmly, though Catherine could see the hurt in her eyes. We share values, interests, humor. We understand each other in ways I've never experienced before. But what about the future? Connor asked. She's so much older. Connor, Catherine interrupted gently, I understand your concern, but your mother and I are both adults who've thought carefully about what we want. The age difference is something we've discussed extensively. It's just weird, Jake muttered. Over time, her sons gradually came to accept the relationship. especially as they saw how happy Natalie was. Catherine won them over by genuinely caring about their lives, asking thoughtful questions, treating them like the intelligent young men they were, rather than judging them. The physical intimacy between Catherine and Natalie deepened gradually, beautifully. The first time they made love, on a Sunday morning 3 months into their relationship, was tender and exploratory, both women nervous and excited. "You're beautiful," Natalie whispered, helping Catherine out of her nightgown. "Every silver hair, every line, every part of you is beautiful." Catherine had been self-conscious about her 63-year-old body, but the way Natalie looked at her, with genuine desire and admiration, made her feel like the most attractive woman alive. They took their time learning each other's bodies, what touch brought pleasure, how to communicate needs and desires. Catherine marveled at how different this was from her experiences with her ex-husband, more present, more connected, more about mutual pleasure than performance. "I never knew it could be like this," Catherine confessed afterward, wrapped in Natalie's arms. "So intimate, so complete." "Neither did I," Natalie said, kissing her forehead. "This is what it feels like to make love with someone you actually love." "I do love you," Catherine said, surprised by how easily the words came. "I love you profoundly, Natalie." "I love you too. So much it sometimes scares me." "What scares you?" Natalie was quiet for a moment. "Losing you. The age difference means we'll have less time together than we would otherwise. It makes every moment feel precious, but also fragile." Catherine understood. She'd had the same thoughts late at night, calculating probabilities, worrying about leaving Natalie alone too soon. "We can't control how much time we have," Catherine said finally. "We can only control how we use it. I'd rather have 10 extraordinary years with you than 30 mediocre ones with someone else." "Promise me something," Natalie said. "Anything. Promise we'll live fully, not cautiously, that we'll travel, take risks, say yes to adventures. I don't want us to waste a single day being careful." "I promise," Catherine said, sealing it with a kiss. They did travel, a trip to Italy where they wandered through art galleries and ate incredible food, a week in Maine at a cozy bed and breakfast, a long weekend in New York seeing Broadway shows and visiting museums. Catherine felt herself becoming more adventurous, more spontaneous, more alive with each experience. At work, Catherine's colleagues noticed the change. She smiled more in faculty meetings, contributed more creative ideas to curriculum discussions, seemed lighter somehow. "Professor Monroe, you seem different this semester," one of her graduate students observed. "More engaged, maybe? It's inspiring." Catherine realized Natalie's influence had made her a better teacher, more present with students, more passionate about her subject matter, more willing to bring her authentic self. 1 year into their relationship, Catherine found herself planning something she'd never imagined doing, a commitment ceremony. Marriage equality wasn't yet legal in Massachusetts in 2004, but that didn't diminish her desire to make promises to Natalie in front of everyone they loved. "Are you sure about this?" Natalie asked, watching Catherine address invitations at their dining room table. "We don't need a ceremony to know we're committed." "I know we don't need it," Catherine said, looking up with a smile. "But I want it. I want to stand in front of our children and friends and declare my love for you. I spent 63 years hiding who I really was. I'm done hiding." The ceremony took place on a beautiful June day in the Rose Garden at Boston's Public Garden. Catherine's daughters served as her attendants, both beaming with pride. Natalie's son stood beside her, having grown to genuinely love and respect Catherine over the past year. Catherine wore an elegant champagne-colored dress, her silver hair swept up elegantly. Natalie chose a flowing cream gown that made her look like a goddess. When they stood facing each other, hands clasped, both had tears in their eyes. "Natalie," Catherine began, her voice strong despite the emotion, You walked into my life when I'd convinced myself the best chapters were behind me. You showed me that life can still surprise us, that passion and joy don't diminish with age, they deepen. You've taught me to be brave, to be present, to choose adventure over safety. I promise to love you fiercely for whatever time we have together, to grow with you, to support your dreams, and to wake up every morning grateful for another day by your side. Natalie wiped away tears before beginning her own vows. Catherine, you're the most extraordinary person I've ever known. You've shown me what it means to live authentically, to claim your truth even when it's terrifying, to build a life based on who you really are rather than who others expect you to be. You make me want to be braver, kinder, more present. I promise to cherish every moment we have together, to never take you for granted, and to love you with everything I am, for as long as we both shall live. They exchanged rings, platinum bands inscribed with my silver, my gold on the inside, and sealed their promises with a kiss that made several guests openly weep. At the reception, Catherine's daughter Emma gave a toast that left everyone emotional. My mother spent most of her life following the rules, doing what was expected, living for everyone else. Watching her finally live for herself, watching her glow with happiness, has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. Natalie, thank you for seeing how special she is and loving her the way she deserves. Jake, Natalie's eldest son, followed with his own toast. I'll admit I had trouble with this relationship at first. Catherine seemed too old for my mom, and I worried about what people would think. But watching them together this past year, I've learned that real love doesn't care about timelines or social conventions. Catherine treats my mom like she hung the moon. They laugh together constantly, support each other completely, and genuinely make each other better people. That's all any of us can hope to find in life. As Catherine and Natalie danced to their first song as committed partners, At Last by Etta James, Catherine felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Happy? Natalie whispered in her ear. Deliriously, almost absurdly happy. No regrets about waiting until 63 to do this? Catherine pulled back to look into Natalie's eyes. Not one. I wasn't ready for you until now. I hadn't become fully myself yet. Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to. They spent their honeymoon in Paris, wandering through museums, eating incredible food, making love in their boutique hotel room with the windows open to the sounds of the city. Catherine felt young and alive, discovering the world alongside Natalie. I have something I want to ask you, Natalie said one evening, as they sat at a cafe in Montmartre, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Go ahead. I want to start a new design project, renovating historic homes for LGBTQ plus seniors. Create beautiful, affirming spaces for people who spent most of their lives unable to live openly. What do you think? Catherine's heart swelled with love for this woman who combined creativity with social justice so naturally. I think it's a brilliant idea. How can I help? Would you consult on the psychological aspects? Help me understand what makes spaces feel safe and affirming for people who've experienced discrimination. I'd be honored. The project became their shared passion over the next few years. Catherine reduced her teaching load to semi-retirement, devoting more time to the consulting work. They renovated 5 homes together, creating spaces that were both beautiful and healing. At 68, Catherine published a book. Catherine and Natalie's love story proves that the greatest romances don't always begin in youth. Sometimes they begin when we're finally brave enough to claim our authentic selves. Their journey from strangers to soulmates shows us that age is truly just a number when two people connect at the deepest level. Whether you're 25 or 75, it's never too late to find the love you deserve. Have you experienced love later in life? Do you believe in second chances and authentic connections that transcend age differences? Share your story in the comments below. Your journey might inspire someone else to choose bravery over fear. And if this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that the best chapters of life might still be unwritten. Love knows no timeline.